Hello, hello, hey everybody. How you guys doing? Um, Nice to see your faces. For those of you who are able to have your cameras on while I'm talking to you, please know that I appreciate it, and I'm looking at your little squares, and it's nice to see your reactions. So thanks for that, if it's possible. There's lots of ways that you can talk to me and to us. I have two friends in the room with me, Abigail and Eric, both from LSAT Demon. Hi, Abigail. Hi, Eric. There's so many people here that I hope everybody can find you guys. I don't know how to pin you to the top of the screen or something, but maybe I hope everybody is seeing you.
I think because we're co-hosts, we should be at the top of the participants
You're
list.
not for me. You're kind of down and over
Oh,
on the right. Eric is. He started the meeting, so he's up there, but not you, Abigail. Anyway, um, we have Abigail and Eric are here to help talk to all y'all. There's a lot of you. There's going to be a lot of you here. You can direct message them if you would like. They're also going to keep an eye on the public chat. I don't see anybody putting anything in the public chat. I would love over there right now, tell me what you think about score plateaus. Tell me why you're here. Tell me what you're hoping to learn. I hope that you'll interact with me and with Abigail and Eric over there in the chat. Again, if you want to ask background questions that you really don't want to share with the entire group, you can always just send them direct messages. Brandon says he's got a plateau and it's driving him nuts. Alan says it's like headbutting a wall. Anybody have any other thoughts? You can raise your hand and talk to me. I love it when people use the raise hand feature in Zoom and queue up. So if you'd like to unmute yourself and talk to me and the group, now is a great time, or any time throughout this hour. Eric, Abigail, any thoughts that you wanted to lead with? Or does anybody have comments about this idea of score plateaus? I'd really like to hear a little bit more from you guys. Okay, so Heather says, I'm making tons of progress on logic games. I'm stuck in the same accuracy range on reading comp and LR. Okay, cool. Anybody else?
Yeah, kind of. I'll unmute. I'll go. So I've been studying for the LSAT for about 2.5 or 3 months, give or take. And my diagnostic was like high 130s, and my latest practice tests have been in the 160s. And I'm struggling with, like, if you've had a huge score increase, how do you know if you're plateauing or have you just hit where you're going to be? And that's just kind of where you're at. And you should be good. Like, you should be happy with the massive score increase. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure. I mean, well, so first of all, congratulations on making a massive score increase. That's incredible. 30 points. That's amazing, or close to 30 points anyway. So yeah, congratulations. You absolutely should be happy with that, but that's not the same thing as settling for that.
Yeah.
My test would be very simple. When you review, are you feeling the click when you're reviewing your mistakes? Do you feel the click and understand the mistakes you're making? And because if people feel like they're getting it, and if they're enjoying the process, then I don't see any reason why there has to be a magical, increase barrier or something.
So for me, I recently broke through fourth game, started finishing them out of nowhere. I was like not even getting to the fourth game to now where I'm finishing them completely. But in the other two sections, the click is there, and when I'm reviewing, I get it, but I just can't. I could keep getting 100% accuracy, but I'm not answering more questions. So the click isn't coming in a reasonable amount of time, and I don't want to rush. Because if I try rushing, my accuracy goes down. So I just feel like I'm kind of getting stuck.
Yeah, interesting choice of language there. You said in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
Well, a reasonable amount of time is however much time it takes for you to get it right. Right? If you don't get it right, then there is no amount of reasonable time.
That's fair.
Yeah. It sounds like you're at the point where, the improvement is not likely to come hot and fast like it did early in your prep. The improvement, having already made a 30-point improvement, you're going to be looking at more like, hey, can I get one more question right this week, essentially. And if you can do that, you can turn a 160 something into a 170 something.
For sure. Thank you.
Anybody else want to talk to me? Thank you, Brandon, for being brave. Let's see. Caleb says, my plateau is so bad. I went from a cold diagnostic of 161 down to a 157 after a month plus of study. That happened to anybody else? I see some nodding. Brandon's nodding. I see a couple people giving me some feedback. Yeah. You know, when it depends where you're studying, you know, sometimes when we get new tools, it takes us some time to get used to using those tools. And so diagnostic of 161 is fantastic, but truth is you're getting a lot of questions right that you don't really know why you're getting them right. And as you start to wrestle with some of the concepts, I can see how on a short time frame you could definitely take a slight drop. But like that comment actually brings me to my first bullet point on the syllabus today, which is we need to talk about whether plateaus even actually exist. So I know you're all here to talk about how to break out of the plateau, but my first hypothesis is always that you're just looking at a small sample and you're seeing a plateau where no plateau in fact exists. In a time frame of a month like that, Caleb, or you say a month plus, but you didn't say 2 months. So, you know, a month and a half, I'll give you. A month and a half is not enough time to know whether you're at a plateau. There's no way you're doing, like, our philosophy is that you shouldn't do more than one practice test a week, like max. And so if it's only been a month or a month and a half, then, you know, you've got 5-6 data points. And I just don't think that's enough data to support this conclusion that you're stuck in any meaningful way. The 161 could have been a little lucky, and the 157 can be a little bit unlucky. And it doesn't take much of that to make this entirely an artifact of your imagination, honestly, where you're inventing a rut for yourself that doesn't actually exist. A month is not a lot of time to prep for the LSAT. Most people are going to prep for at least 3 months to reach their real ability. Many people study for 6 months or 9 months or a year or more, depending how much progress they need to make. I just am not sure that you guys are actually stuck in a plateau. Can I hear from somebody who is sure that they are stuck in a plateau? Somebody with like data to support that assertion? This will be real interesting if none of you have the data. It'll be like, oh, class over, we've solved it. There are no plateaus. Victoria.
I've been studying for about 7 months, and for the past month, I think I've plateaued in RC and LR. I drill every single day. I review my mistakes every single day, and I can't get past about -5 for each section.
You said for how long?
I've been studying for 7 months, and I've been stuck at -5 for RC and LR for the past month.
Yeah. So again, Victoria, that just doesn't convince me. Like, you're doing timed sections for a month and you're stuck at or around -5. Well, when you first got to -5, it could have been kind of lucky that you got there. And now when you get -5, it could be that you're getting a little bit unlucky. Like, I can't, if you're doing what we ask you to do, and it sounds like you totally are, if you're drilling and if you're thoroughly reviewing, then you are in fact improving your skills. Like, I have to quit this job if that's not the truth. So your skills are getting better. It just hasn't been reflected in the record for you yet. And so again, I think that that's really a product of your imagination rather than any actual plateau. Let's hear from a couple of other people. Alan and then Lexi.
I can read off some scores that make it seem like I'm plateauing.
Sure.
Let's see. Let me go back to 162, 162, three 167s in a row. 165, 165 again. I had a stroke or something and hit 158. 165, 163, 161, 166, 166, 162, 165, 164, 163, 161. So I'm just like in this zone, not breaking past it, not really falling past it, just kind
But
of
if,
there.
yeah, but your next score can be 170 so easily. I mean, that's the thing you don't really like. People don't recognize that the upside breakout is probably just like your next test. I mean, it sounds, Alan, what was the time frame there from like the first number you read me to the last number you read me?
Roughly 2-3 months, somewhere in that area. I've been studying since about around September, maybe late September. Basically ever since I finished undergrad.
Roughly a full test every week?
The timing's somewhat inconsistent. Sometimes I'd take 2 tests a week. Sometimes I wouldn't test for like an entire week. It just depended on how I was feeling.
Talk to me about your review process when you do these practice tests.
Typically what I do is I go back, well, when I'm taking the test, I flag questions that I'm not 100% on.
Okay, there's a thing I would suggest that you stop.
Okay.
I don't think that's helping you. So another item that I have on my agenda, and we can hopefully find several of these moments for all of y'all, if you'll, talk to us. I don't like this strategy of flagging questions during an actual timed section, because you're not going to do that on your official test. So why are you doing that on your practice tests? God forbid, Alan, you're flagging and then going back. Please tell me you're not doing that.
I actually used to do that when
Right,
I
I
first started
remember that.
studying. Yeah, so I stopped doing that, but
So I think you're still stuck in this bad habit of flagging questions from when you used to finish the section way too early,
yeah.
and then go back and look at the ones you flagged. I would, that flagging, that crutch of flagging a question that you're struggling with, I've just seen so many students use that as an excuse to not figure it out. It's like you're still racing the clock. You're doing well, I'm stuck here. I know I'm struggling with this question, but I need to just pick an answer and flag it. And then, yeah, sure enough, you're going to miss that question kind of a lot because you knew you didn't solve it. And you're permitting yourself to walk away from a question without actually solving it. And I think that's a subtle shift, right? But I think that just simply not flagging questions might make you a tiny bit more persistent on each question. You can give a little more attention to each question. Suddenly you find that you're getting more of them right. All you need to do is get 1 or 2 more right a section, by the way, and all of a sudden your score is blowing out the top end of your range.
So it's like the surrender to win thing that you talked about a few weeks ago. Just figure the question out. Don't mind the timer too much.
Don't mind the timer at all. I mean, I hope you don't, like our philosophy again, you start the timer and then you click the clock to make it disappear. If you're keeping the clock on the screen, you're not doing it our way. And I need you to do it our way if you want to make our kind of progress. I want to talk about this point. The second bullet point on my agenda was you got to study differently if you want different results. So if you're convinced that you really are stuck in a plateau, this might be obvious, but I'm going to want to talk to you about what you're going to do differently to get out of that plateau. And it's not, it can be something simple, like hopefully I just gave Alan. I'd have to, we got to like talk to you guys and interact with you guys. I hope you're lighting up the chat with Eric and Abigail, because like if you participate with us and if you talk to us, we will find ways for you to shift what you've been doing and think about it in a different, better way. Other ways to study differently. If you're studying after work and you're tired, I would really prefer that you study before work when you're fresh. I want you to give your best to the LSAT every day. So this is something to consider if you're stuck in a rut and you've been practicing when you're not at your best. Well, guess what? You've been practicing being not at your best. And it's not good to practice being not at your best. You need to practice success. So maybe try to do it before work, or you can, reserve a conference room and do it during your lunch break or something. But this waiting until it's the last thing is probably not your recipe for success. Let's see, who else wants to talk to me? Somebody else stuck in a plateau that they want to talk about? Lauren says, I specifically think I'm plateauing in one section, logic games. Cold 154 in August, consistently studying ever since. Already had one LSAT attempt. Official score was my best yet, a 162. But in my drills and practice tests, I consistently can't get better than a -7 in logic games, even when I am seeing improvement in LR and RC. There, I would like, I guess, to talk, it's almost too natural of a segue, but my next bullet point is that you do have to try to be careful, Lauren, with your self-talk. The more often you say, I can't get better than a -7, you're like hypnotizing yourself to believe that you can't get better than a -7. And of course, it's just a lazy turn of phrase. And of course, I know that you didn't mean it that way, but did your subconscious possibly hear it that way? Especially if you keep telling yourself over and over how you suck. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Our teacher, Stuart, reminded me of it today. Stuart's a golfer, and he was talking about how important it is in his golf game that he cleans up his self-talk if he wants to play well. If you like endlessly criticize yourself for bad shots, and if you say dumb shit like I always hit it in the water on this hole, then you're gonna hit it in the water on that hole, because you're rehearsing it, and you got to stop that. Lauren, good news is logic games is by far the easiest section to improve on. Logic games is the one section of the test that we believe you should for sure perfect before you take any official LSATs. I know that blows the mind of many people who hear it for the first time, but games are perfectible in a real nice way. For those who are willing to grind it out on the logic games, if you're willing to do the practice that it takes, which we have roughly 100 practice tests. So we have roughly 400 logic games to work on. And all you got to do, Lauren, is do maybe one timed section per day of games, and then thoroughly review, watch our videos, work on it on your own, try the same game a couple different ways, play with it, learn how to just play with the logic games and have fun with them. If you're not there yet, y'all, that's the reason why you're on a plateau. Okay. Like I am willing to grant you that if you're not yet at perfection on the games, then okay, maybe you are in a plateau. Because what are you doing? You're leaving free points on the table. You got to get better at the games. And I know that we can get you there. It just happens for the people who put the work in. Let's hear again from Brandon.
Yeah, so if anyone else has something to say, I don't want to like jump back on. But I've seen in the chat, the 1 hour LSAT study schedule, that like helped me out significantly. So I'm a management consultant and I have like crazy hours, and I was like stressing about when I was scheduled. It was like when you have that 1 hour that you could just like lock into, you almost like start looking forward to it because you can hyper focus. But I wanted to ask you more specifically about a logic game. So I was stuck in logic games, like I said before, and I made a switch to where I started highlighting rules that were dead in the worlds that I was building. Like I don't highlight on any other part of the test. It was just like gave me permission to start with the rules out of order. And ever since I made that change, I've been finishing the sections end with accuracy.
Cool.
But I don't know I guess my question is, when you have like we don't like overreact to data points when it's good or bad. Is that something that you like that you stick with?
Well, just reinforce it with more data points.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's working for you. If you're consistently scoring perfect on the games, then you're consistently scoring perfect on the games. That's all I want. I don't give a shit how you do it. I want you to score consistently perfect on the games. So I think you could probably let go of that highlighting thing now that you've learned that you can take the rules out of order. Learning that you can take the rules out of order when you're building your worlds is a pretty big step. I mean, that's a big difference. You're attacking the game in a completely different way. You're looking at the bottlenecks instead of just like, well, rule 1 says XYZ. So that sounds great, Brandon, and I don't question it. Just keep grinding away, and your process will probably evolve as you continue to practice.
Good.
Okay, study questions. Let me just clarify, Jenna, when I say don't take an official LSAT until you perfect the logic games, I mean, don't take the official, like one of your real attempts, the ones that you have to pay $215 for. Don't do those. Just keep doing practice tests. And you absolutely should be doing official practice tests or practice sections or real actual logic games. You should be doing that regularly. If games is your weakest section, then congratulations, because that means that you have a weakness in the easiest section to improve on, and all you have to do is put in the work. Simple. I mean, it's as if that's all they're even testing. How hard can you work? It's not about how smart you are. Can you, though, practice these little puzzles until you get super good at them? All right. Let's see. Sorry, Alan, I had to beat you up in the chat for saying you always jump into the questions too fast without world building enough.
Specifically when I'm doing time sections, and I'm really working hard on like keeping the clock off and just not thinking about it. Because I also have the nasty habit of swapping back and forth between games, especially when the timer's going down, to do damage control.
You're doing stupid shit, man. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're just not, that's not, you have to just stop doing that way.
Yeah.
It's clear.
It's like one of those gimmick strategies that I learned from Power Score to give you like a sub 150 score.
Well, whatever, but do it a different way.
Yeah.
You know better now, so you can do it a different way. You have to keep practicing it, but you can definitely do it a different way and try to clean up that self-talk. It's like insidious, y'all. It's everywhere. We all do it. But you're gonna, if you continue telling yourself the story that you always do a thing, then yeah, okay, I guess you do. But at some point, you're going to stop saying that, and that might help you to stop doing it. You know, when I quit drinking, which was about a year and a half almost ago, I really did it one day at a time. It was just like, I'm not drinking today, and that's it. And so suddenly it was different. Like, my whole identity went from like Mr. Happy Hour to nah, not now, not today. And then it's just kind of like not ever, because I don't know. So like, which changed first? Was it my behavior, or was it my talk, or was it some combination of both? I don't know, but you're going to have to maybe try it out for yourself. Roberto.
Hi there. Can you hear me, Nathan?
Yeah, I got you.
Great. So recently, I've tried to change my focus on how I look at the drilling. Before, I think I was doing maybe like an hour, 2 hours of pure, just like chopping questions. But then over time, I kind of just recently I've kind of maybe 30, 45 minutes of doing less drilling questions, but also making sure that on the questions I got right, making sure that I have that click. And if I don't have that click, still go back and look at those explanations instead of just doing maybe 30 drilling questions of LR, for example, maybe do 15 and, quality ones. Even though that timer, I think it doesn't include the time that it takes to look at the explanation of why I got of the question, essentially your explanation.
It does not. When you're in review, it doesn't. No, it's not timing you there. It's only timing you until you submit an answer. And then, but I would really not even be thinking about that. Do you get it right or do you get it wrong? Like, the lawyer in the room is the one who's just getting them all right. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. You can't get them right by speed. You have to get them right by getting them right. So doing fewer questions generally is probably a successful strategy. Please don't take that as any reason to study for less than, the hour a day that we're really looking for. If you're doing over an hour a day, then yeah, maybe, you want to cut it back a little bit and just make sure that you're doing quality, not just quantity.
At first, I was thrown off by I'll be there for doing good work, but I'll be there for maybe 2 hours, and then it looks like the timer only says 30 minutes. I'm just like, wait a minute.
It will get less taxing the more you practice. I mean, it gets easy and fun the more you do it. And I know Eric had that experience and Abigail had that experience, and basically all of our teachers are successful students of ours who just found a way to love the test. And then it becomes really, I swear to God, it's a joy for me to do the test. I was looking at a stupid journaling prompt today that was asking me what I would do if today was the last day I was going to live. And I was thinking, I probably will teach my LSAT class tonight because that's fun. And it's
I've kind of developed a Stockholm syndrome a little bit over time.
Well, it doesn't have to be Stockholm syndrome. I think that you can realize that it's actually a fun, easy game. And I do want to put that another way. If you're going to be successful in law, if you're going to be successful on this test, and if you're going to be successful in law school, and if you're going to be successful in law, I really do believe that at every stage, you are going to find a way to make it into a fun, easy game. You're not going to be successful on these things by hating it, y'all. You have to be successful on these things by figuring it out calmly, carefully. The clock does not help you with that. The clock is your enemy. You have to focus on just understanding so that you can start to see how easy the test actually is.
Thank you.
On the agenda, there's a bullet point about the power of fresh starts. And I don't know how much I want to say about that other than to refer you to the Hidden Brain podcast. And there's a link there to the episode. You may have listened to it. I don't know. I'm a big fan of that podcast. I feel like I learn stuff every time I listen to it. And they were talking about the power of fresh starts, and that it got me thinking about the plateau thing specifically, that, it's similar to the study differently if you want different results point. But it's specifically, how can you put yourself in a space where you now are someone different from the person who used to perform differently? And to anybody who's been listening to our podcast for a while, or maybe you've studied with your free LSAT Demon account, or those of you who have signed up and actually study LSAT with us, thank you for trusting us with your prep. You guys who are doing it, and some of you have told me, yeah, okay, I've been drilling, I've been looking at the explanations, I'm doing it. You are changing the way that you approach the test. And so when you look back at, let's say you took an official LSAT and you didn't score what you wanted to score, if you've been since then studying with us for a month, you're not the person who scored whatever score that was anymore. And I would encourage you, especially if you feel like you're stuck in a plateau, if you're stuck in a rut, you might be able to shift out of that by just reminding yourself, this is a truth, okay? You're not the person who, on the reading comp, you're not the person who back then you rush through the message and skim the questions and kind of half guess on all of them and get half of them right. That was you, but that's a different you. That's not you anymore. So when you approach a new practice test, you've got to remember, oh, wait a second. That was some other stuff that I used to do. And now I'm a totally different test taker because I'm approaching the test in a completely different way. It wasn't you, the person who used to all the time manage the clock pay so much attention to the clock that you were losing focus on the questions, well, that it's just not you anymore. And so you have this opportunity to take a fresh start simply by not, don't do you just have to remember, like it's sort of like a mental state thing that when you sit down to take this test, you should feel pretty confident. You should be pumping yourself up instead of thinking about past failures or whatever rut you think you're stuck in. You should be like, well, but wait a second, those previous ones, I mean, that practice test that I took even 2 weeks ago, well, yeah, but on the logic games, I was doing that thing of selecting each game and bouncing back and forth between each game and rushing at the end of the section. And that's not me anymore. I don't do that anymore. I'm not going to do that on this practice test. It's an opportunity to take a fresh start and hopefully have some kind of a different result. On logical reasoning, well, yeah, you used to suck at logical reasoning, but now you know how dumb of a strategy it is to read the question first. You know how dumb it is to rush through the argument and then just try to narrow it down on the questions and get to a 50-50 and feel good about it and guess. I mean, that's not you anymore if you've been really doing it the way we're trying to get you to do. So, and there's a million other things like that. Everything that you learn, it's like at higher levels, it sounds more like, well, yeah, I used to miss 5 on logical reasoning, but that was when I didn't even know the difference between a necessary assumption question and a sufficient assumption question. And that's a thing that very frequently 167s don't understand, but 172s do understand. And if you now understand that difference, well, then, yeah, that rut of 165 or whatever, yeah, but that's not you now. And the more you can sell yourself on that idea, you got to be the test taker that you want to be, right? So I think you have to accept that you are. I'm just not that interested in your past performance, I guess. I'm more interested in what you understand about the test now and how you approach it today. What do we think of that stupid idea? Does anybody find it useful, not useful? Can you hear yourself saying that as you approach a new practice test, to just go, well, wait, but okay, yeah, that was a different guy. Harry, in the Demon and on the official LSAT, as soon as you start a timed section, if you just click the clock disappears. That's scary for many people, but after 30 minutes, the clock will come back. You'll get a visible, a pop-up telling you there's 5 minutes left in the section. And from that point forward, you actually can't turn off the clock, which I think is unfortunate. Because my strategy involves you really still are just going to ignore the clock. When the 5-minute warning pops up, you can click some guesses for the remaining questions in the section because you want to make sure that you get the free points for all the questions that you're not going to have time to attempt, which is totally fine. If you're scoring anything less than 170 right now, you do not want to be finishing the sections. You want to be guessing on the questions at the end of the section until you reach 170 at least. So 5 minutes left. Okay, cool. C. And then you're going to have 4 minutes and 45 seconds left to basically try to get one more question right. Maybe one more question after that. But you're not going to do 5 questions in 5 minutes. It's stupid to try to time it. Don't half-ass 5 questions. Instead, get one right and then another one right. And if you do it our way, then you get to completely ignore the clock. And completely ignoring the clock means that you get to carve back some percentage of your brain processing power. How much brain processing power do you guys think you're using in your time management? Some of you, it sounds like kind of a lot. Lexi says 100%. Okay, Alan says a lot in all caps. Yeah, I mean, it's I know, I feel you for sure. And boy, if you want to transform your score, completely, if you've been paying attention to the time, then yeah, again, I have really good news for you. that you can approach this test in an entirely different way. You'll blow your own mind if you just learn to ignore the clock. Blog posts galore in the chat. Who else wants to talk to me? Nicole says, I've been studying for about a year now, and I recently joined the Demon around July. I'm averaging about 60% accuracy on LR and RC consistently, and 80 to 90% in games. Okay, so right there, you can do better on both. On games, you really should be more like 95 to 100% on the questions that you answer. Any question that you answer, you just have to get it right. Like you're not answering it if you're not getting it right. You have to solve it. You have to know for sure that that's the answer. And if anything else is just random, you're just like half guessing at best. So get in the habit of getting perfect games. Like just one game at a time is fine. If it takes you 35 minutes to do one game, cool. Keep doing that. If you got them all right. But if you missed any of them, then that's not it. That's not going to do it. We have to get to the point where we are solving the logic games questions. Logical reasoning, 60%, not good. Reading comp, 60%, not good. We got to slow way down. We have to do fewer questions, and we just have to spend more time to get them right. Okay, let me continue here. I think I've been getting better at games because I can write them down and I can see my mistakes. You can also write them down and solve them and never make any mistakes, which is where you need to be trying to go. I believe for LR and RC, we shouldn't write anything down. Correct. I don't ever write anything on LR or RC. Do you recommend outlining? No. Do you have any visualization recommendations? No. Or just talk out loud to ourselves. You're actually not allowed to do that unless you have a special accommodation from LSAT. And it's slower and you don't need to be talking out loud. You just need to do fewer questions. I mean, you got to start, you're choking because you're shoveling more food in than you can actually, like there's too much. You're trying to do too much. Okay. You're biting off more than you can chew. That's the thing I was looking for. It can be way easier than that, but you're going to have to just decide that you're going to slow down to speed up in the long run. So see if you can get the first 5 every single time on logical reasoning and reading comp. If you can't, then that's your problem. I mean, you have to start getting them right. You have to get the easiest ones right, and they're at the beginning of every section. So 5 in a row. We have a class that's about trying to find the first 5 questions correct. If you can do 5, then you can move on to 10. And do we have both of those classes? Perfect 5. It's like a perfect 10. And what's the 5 one? I forget it's alliteration, I believe.
Flawless 5.
Thank you. Thanks, Abigail. Thank you, Daisy. Flawless 5. I mean, those are really good offerings, I think, for people who really at every level, because if you're missing questions that early in the section, then it's like, well, I can tell you from here that that's your problem. You're just not taking the time to solve the questions. So if you're at 60%, Nicole, I just think you really need to try to do fewer questions and get more of them right. Eric, you've got a hand up.
Yeah, just going back to the visualization question on RC, I don't know if you wanted to talk about Control F period, some people seem to find that useful.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that in a while, but it's like the one, I never highlight, I never underline, I never take notes. I just think all of that is it can be an excuse for not understanding, really. But on the new modern LSAT, or on a computer, when you're doing reading comp, you can use Control F. And what you do is you search for period space. And if you search a reading comprehension passage for period space, it will highlight all the periods in a reading comp passage. And it's like, I personally never, ever would I do this. I'm not doing it. But if you're somebody who is at 60% on reading comp, maybe, I know for sure you need to slow down. And that is a way that you can, Yeah, thanks, Eric. Visualize a thing that might help you slow down. A period is a stop sign, but I want to point out that semicolons are also stop signs. So are em dashes, so are commas in many cases. You have to start breaking these sentences into pieces sometimes in order to actually understand them. Yes, Command F is allowed on the actual real LSAT. Eric, something more?
Yeah, I just wanted to relay a question that I got via DM. Someone who's asking about the concept of making sure you study while you're fresh, kind of doing less questions so you can study while you're fresh. And this person has a theory of studying no matter how tired they are because they don't know how they're going to feel on test day. So they want to prepare for if they're not at their best on test day. What do you think about that?
You're going to be at your best on test day, or else you're not going to take the test. If you got COVID or the flu or whatever, don't take the test. You can always withdraw. You're only going to take the test when you're ready to take the test. So that means you've taken enough practice tests to know where you're at, and where you're at is good enough to get you, hopefully the scholarship of your dreams. Remember, my goal in life is to get you to go to law school for free. And you're going to know from your practice tests that you've got it. And you're going to take the test on your terms. Like, you don't sign up for a test and then just, well, I signed up, so I have to take it. No, you don't. You can withdraw. You can withdraw the day before. You don't get a refund. And I know it sucks. It's $215, but it's also your entire legal career. Not really riding on any one test. Don't freak out about the official test, because you do have at least 3 attempts at it, and only your highest score is going to count. But you're not going to take, I would never advise you to take the test at anything less than, at or above your best, or at your normal state or above. It's going to be, you're ready. Like, what are you going to do? Go party the night before? I don't think so. And if your life is such that you simply can't guarantee that you're going to have a quiet place to take the test. By the way, LSAC, if you're poor, LSAC will pay for a hotel room for you. But if you've got kids and stuff and 20 jobs and hey man, this might not be the right time for you, because this is a real serious endeavor. You're on the precipice of a gigantic investment in terms of time and money. And so, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Ben thought about that. Ben is more of a sort of grit advocate than I am. Because if you never worked out unless you were dying to work out, well, then maybe you would just never work out. So I understand that life, you're going to have some ups and downs. You're going to have some days that you're not at your best. But so, sometimes maybe you can study on a down day, but also God, give yourself some slack. You're having a terrible day. If it was the actual worst day of your life at work today, then I think you can go ahead and skip your LSAT. It's probably for the best that you do. Yeah, Eric says something here that's a little I don't want to encourage people to be wildly type A about this stuff, because I have seen people over engineer their perfect lead up to the test. But Eric says he was doing his practice tests consistently at the same time, and then he booked his official time right around that time. And what was he doing? Well, he was sort of rehearsing being successful on the official test. I'd say as long as you feel good about that, then yeah, go ahead and do it. But if it becomes too stressful, sometimes people freak out about not doing it perfectly, and it certainly isn't about doing it perfectly. You're going to take multiple shots at it, and none of them are going to be perfect. You're going to just do your best on each one. Got about 15 minutes left. So please get your questions in now if you want to talk to us. I'm leaving at the top of the hour because I have my usual Thursday evening LSAT class. I know I will see some of you over there. Oh, there's Abigail. I took all my practice tests at night after work and had to take my official test at 8 a.m. Back in the in-person days when you couldn't even practice doing the test the real way that you were going to do it because it was, she's not going to get a room full of people probably. So yeah, and it's no big deal if you're prepared. Thank you, Abigail. There is a get good component to this, that if you're good enough at the content of the test, then you're going to know that you're good enough at the content of the test. And then if it's like, okay, fire alarm goes off and you have to take the LSAT at 3 a.m., I think you would go, all right, let's see it. Because as soon as you can lose yourself in the questions, for me, it would be like, what? Oh, I get to play my favorite game? Sure, let's go. And, 2 hours, an hour and a half later, the test is over, or 2 hours later, the test is over. Eric.
Yeah, I just wanted something that came to mind returning to the topic of plateaus. And I think this goes back to something important that you referred to early in the hour, which was, especially over a short period of time, your scores on your PTs just not reflecting your ability or the skill, your increase in skill. And it reminds me of my other encounter with reference to plateaus recently. I just started reading Atomic Habits.
Okay.
And the author, James Clear, references what he calls the plateau of latent potential, which is basically just he's got a chart for it and everything, but it's basically just the difference between our expected linear skill increase and our actual non-linear skill increase. And I think there's a lot of that on the LSAT as well. And just, it's helpful to remember that even when your scores aren't increasing, that will be a lagging indicator of you actually increasing your skills at the LSAT.
Yeah, I think that's a point that has to be made, is that when you're improving on the test, you're improving a range. You're not improving in any kind of like a linear fashion. You're improving a range of scores. And what that means is your good days are getting better, your medium days are getting better, and your bad days are getting better. But you're still going to have good days and medium days and bad days. And so as you, if you follow your score chart, which Alan helpfully read out a whole bunch of scores earlier, Alan, I would just consider those to always be data points within a moving range. And I think that range is bigger. I think the range is wider than you probably think. Like, it's definitely wider than what you've observed because you haven't seen all the data points in the range. So it's wider. And if you're studying with us, if you're doing it the right way, then I think that range is constantly just slowly shifting toward the 180 end of the scale. But you're allowed to draw any random number within that range on any given test. And it's real easy to latch on to the very last one you took and go, oh, well, look where I am. And it's like, nah, you're the range of all those recent tests. And Alan, there were a couple 166s in there, as I recall, which I think is 1 point off of your all-time high. So I think that, Eric, is that like along the lines of what you're talking about? That I just think as you continue to improve, it is going to break out on the upside for you sometimes. And overall, your bad scores are going to get better. And your good scores are going to get better too, but it's just not necessarily going to be reflected today or this month. Anybody else have questions, comments? The rule of thirds, says Alex. When you're chasing a dream or doing anything hard, you'll feel good a third of the time, okay a third of the time, and crappy a third of the time. And if the ratio is roughly in that range, then you're doing fine. Yeah, totally. So maybe today was the crappy day along your dream chasing. And if the ratio is off, like you feel too good all the time or too bad, then you got to look at if you're fatiguing yourself or not trying hard enough or pushing yourself. Yeah, I mean, that is, you can visualize it that way. You're going to, like, 1/3 of the time, you're going to have a 67th percentile or above performance. And 1/3 of the time, you're going to be somewhere between your 33rd and 66th percentile. And yeah, 1/3 of the time, you're going to be at your bottom. And that's just that's just reality. We can't ever escape that. And it's true of the official tests too. I think there's freedom in this idea, because what we invite all of our students to do is to treat practice tests as if they're just another, treat official tests as if they're just another practice test. So if you can learn to take your practice tests seriously, but not too seriously, then you can hopefully take the official test seriously, but not too seriously. And then you just need to remember that the score you get on your official test is simply one more data point within a range. And it could be a bottom third or a medium third or a top third of your range on the day that you take the test. And hey, guess what? 1/3 of you are going to score in the bottom third for you. And for all of you guys, you definitely should take it again. For those of you who score somewhere in the middle third for you, you should probably take it again, because the lucky 1/3 of you who score in the top third for you on that day, well, that looks awful nice on your official record, and that's going to count. And maybe you decide to walk away because you've just like gotten a good score for you. But yeah, 2/3 of the time, you're not going to score your 1/3 best score. And that's totally okay in your practice, and it's totally okay on official tests. And you just need to learn to, and it can be hard to be comfortable with this, but your official test it isn't special. It's not different. It's just another LSAT. And you can do good, medium, or bad. And fortunately, only the high score is going to count. So you can always take it again and again. And some people end up taking it 5 times, sometimes more. Daniel, 2 hours a day is a lot. I would go back to one of them, Abigail or Eric, posted earlier a blog post called 1 Hour LSAT. I think I would just go back and look at that blog post again, because if you're going to do 2 hours, well, first you need to do 1 high quality hour. And so I might build a study schedule based on, okay, let me find that 1 high quality hour a day, and here's what I'm going to do. And that blog post gives you a pretty good idea what to do. And it also gives you some suggestions for how to do a little bit more. The little bit more is basically, hey, what's your worst section? Oh, really? Okay, well, then we should work on that. It's not rocket science. The test tells you pretty clearly what you suck at. And so all you have to do is just do more of that stuff and review it thoroughly, and focus on solving it and feeling good about your answers. Alan, I'm not saying 3 to 5 hours is out of the question. I am questioning whether much is coming of hour 4 and hour 5. Like, you don't get extra points for the number of hours spent studying. You get points for your understanding. So I would be looking for clicks instead of like trying to set a record for most hours. And by clicks, what I mean is just, there was something you didn't understand. There was a question that you missed. There was a wrong answer that you selected. There was a right answer that you could not positively identify. Can you do it again and read it real carefully, and then really investigate, like, oh, shit. Yeah. Okay. I see it. I see not only why that right answer is right, but I also see why that wrong answer is wrong. And I realized that I had 2 chances not to miss this question. I both picked a wrong answer and failed to pick the right one. And if you feel you should be able to get this click of understanding where you go, oh, I totally see it now. I see what I did wrong. I don't think I'm likely to do that again because it makes too much sense. It really does make like too much sense. Like if you're questioning whether you understand a question or not, you don't. Probably you don't. Really. Like it, I like complain about this a lot, but I think people do blind review wrong. Like you missed a question, and so then you redo it and you pick a different answer and you get it right, and you're like, yeah, cool, got it. Well, no. Why? Why did you miss it? What's going on? Why did you pick that other answer? And why didn't you pick this answer? Can you diagnose the problem rather than just like look at the correct answer and look at the answer key and then, you know, convince yourself that you actually understand it when maybe you actually don't. So again, Alan, go for those clicks instead of burning out on crazy hours. The day before the official test day, it doesn't matter. Do whatever you want. I would not get hammered, and I would not study LSAT for 10 hours. I wouldn't cram. But if you enjoy going for a walk, I would go for a walk. If you like movies, I would go to a movie. Anything to take your mind off of, if you're at all afraid of the next day. We have a couple free classes coming up that I would like to promote. Lily is doing a pre-test pump up for, I'm not sure if that might be a paid subscribers thing, but we do a test or a class, a special class right before every LSAT now, where all of Lily and all of our teachers like share sort of last minute tips of, okay, what we're really going to do is we're going to pump ourselves up and remember that we're not the person who used to do the test in those dumb, I used to do it the hard way, but now I do it the easy way. That's the vibe, I think, of the pre-test pump up. And I am doing a free class. I think it's the next one, maybe on my agenda. 2 weeks from now, I'm doing a free class specifically about last minute test day advice. So I think I'll maybe save that discussion for the last day. We're not there yet. So probably just plan on treating it like any other day. If you want to do a little bit of LSAT studying, great. But if you want to just, you can declare victory at some point. To go back to the golf analogy, you can't stay on the driving range forever. At some point, you got to go to the first tee and tee it up. And so like, if you decide not to study on the last day, that's the equivalent of like leaving half of your warm-up bucket just there on the driving range, and you go, yep, I got it. I've been practicing. It's not the first time I've ever played golf. Let's go to the first tee. I'm ready to do this. You can sometimes send yourself a little message that you're ready to take the test by taking the day off before the test. But other people are going to freak out and be like, what do you mean I can't? I'm okay, fine. Yeah, if you want to study, you can study. But you shouldn't have to. Let's put it that way. You should be ready well before the test, not just the day before the test. You should be ready weeks in advance. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Abigail. I think Abigail's going with me over to the other class tonight. Eric's going to hang out with you, though. I bet the tone changes significantly as soon as I'm out of the room. So why don't you guys, if you want, stick around and talk to Eric. I'm going to go yell at this other group of kids, and I'll see some of you.
I start pitching other LSAT prep companies immediately.
Yeah. Eric will give it to you straight. I have no doubt. You can also thank Eric for all his awesome work he does as the editor of the Thinking LSAT podcast and the LSAT Demon Daily podcasts. Thanks so much, both Eric and Abigail, and all y'all for coming to the class. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, y'all. Anything else you want to talk about? I'm here for however long. If you've got questions, you still need answers, if we still want to talk about Plateaus or anything else with the other sections of the LSAT, or admissions related stuff too. I'm currently in the middle of the whole admissions game myself. It's a little, if you're not already in that, it's a little late, but maybe you're thinking forward to next year. Any other questions that you got before we wrap things up tonight? Can either ask in chat or, Alex asks, can you submit a rule of thirds for pearls versus turds? Yeah, and if you don't already know, pearls versus turds is one of the segments on Thinking LSAT podcast, basically just evaluating received wisdom from the internet, feel free, help@thinkinglsat.com. Or if you go to thinkinglsat.com, there's, I think, also a submissions form that you can fill out with to reach out to the pod for them to, whether it's pearls versus turds or just other questions. Carol, I have not decided where I'm going. I'm still waiting to hear back. I've been accepted to some places. I've gotten some scholarship offers, but still waiting to hear back from a few places. So no decision yet. Lucy, any quick patterns or clicks you found along the way for any section of the LSAT you can share? I think for me, obviously the clicks that matter are not the broad general strategy clicks. The clicks that matter are you understanding the one question that you're on. And, you know, what I often found was, especially early on when I hadn't yet fully imbibed the approach of slow down, don't give a shit about accuracy, or don't give a shit about the time, focus entirely on accuracy and don't hit submit until you're sure, because only one question at a time matters. And probably others have had this experience. I would hit submit, I would get it wrong, and then in a blind review page, I would go through and realize I would all of a sudden, because it was review instead of the actually like drilling a question or doing a question, I felt like I had all the time in the world. So I used that time to perfectly solve the question before hitting submit. And if you can just flip that process and realize, hey, maybe just treat it like a blind review the first time and insist on getting it right before hitting submit, that's going to lead to improvement. So that's a big one. The other thing I think that is a big click that is central to our approach to the test is an acknowledgement that there's only one right answer, that there aren't multiple candidates. There's not multiple good answers. You're not picking the best one. You're picking the only right one. And that's true for every section of the test. It makes the most intuitive sense on the logic games. And I think that's where people first realize, oh, on the games, if I'm looking at a must be true question, and it seems to me from my diagrams like two of these answer choices must be true, I know that I did something wrong. And that immediately makes sense on the games, but it's equally true on LR and RC. And if you can adopt that mentality on those sections and think, hey, on this LR flaw question, or maybe flaw is not the best one, but on this LR question, it seems as if there are multiple good answers. That's because I did something wrong in my setup. So adopting that mentality, that like kind of logic games mentality onto the other sections of the test, that was a big deal for me. Another question from the chat, and then I'll get to you, Victoria. Should you review immediately after taking a time section? I mean, go to the bathroom if you need to, get lunch if you need to, but as soon as makes sense, as soon as you can. I think the key with review is, as much as possible, you want to remember why you picked the answer choice that you did. If you got an answer wrong, part of your review should be remembering what your thought process was in the moment, and not only finding the correct answer, but diagnosing, hey, what was wrong about my thought process? Why did I pick that? How can I avoid that in the future? And what didn't I see in the right answer choice that caused me to not pick that? So that's, I think, best achieved if you can do your review as soon as possible. That's why, like on drilling, if you get a question wrong on individual drilling, review it then and there. Don't flag it and come back to it. Just do it then, do your review then, and then go and drill your next question. Yeah, Victoria, got a question?
Yeah, hi, Eric. Right now, my main issue is the level 4 and 5 LR and RC questions. I'm reviewing them in the same way I did for level 1 to 3 questions, but I think evidence of the progress is lagging significantly more. And I was just wondering if there's something different or more I should be doing to tackle these kinds of questions.
It really comes down, it's hard to, like, different questions are hard for different reasons, so it's hard to answer that question broadly. The strategy is the same. You're talking about RC specifically?
LR and RC.
LR and RC. Well, it's true on both of them. In RC in particular, it's useful to remember that like you need to be able to point to exactly where your proof for picking the right answer choice is. Like there is definitive proof in the passage somewhere that you could put your finger on your computer screen and say that's why. And a lot of what I see students struggling with on RC is picking an answer because it kind of passes the vibe check. So they think it's like, oh, I think that was like the author's point, right? I think that was the author would agree with that. But when I ask them, okay, no, but that might seem right, but point to where your proof is, all of a sudden it starts to break down. You realize, oh, well, I guess they never said exactly that. Well, yeah. So I think that's true on RC. It might just mean doubling down on that philosophy of needing to find precise textual evidence to support the answer choice that you're picking. Maybe the questions are harder because it's harder to find that, or it involves multiple parts of the passage. I don't know. On LR, again, it's going to come back to spending more time with the argument, more time with the passage. And when you find yourself, there's probably a moment on more difficult questions when you think to yourself, oh, this is a tough one. When you recognize that it's taking you longer to understand either the language of the passage, or to find that missing flaw or that missing piece that's going to be tested in the question. And when you find yourself struggling more on one question, to just accept that it's going to take you longer to do that one and feel totally fine with it. And I think a lot of my later success on the test came from just confidence in just believing that however long it took me to do a question, that was exactly how long it needed to take me. And that I knew that I would take less time on other sections and it would all even out. So I don't know if that's as helpful an answer as you were looking for. It's really just doubling down on the same advice that we always give. It's the same if it's a level 2 question as it is a level 5 question. Let's see. Lucy asked how many PTs I did through my prep. If you're talking just like sit down and do a 3 or 4 section PT all in one sitting, I probably did, I don't know, somewhere between 15 or 20 of them. I was doing them most weekends. I don't think that's necessary. But I'm pretty sure I did it through drilling and PTs and timed sections, individual sections. I'm pretty sure I did all of the logic games before I took the test. And that was the key for me, was unlocking the logic games, getting good on the logic games. Yeah, total sections, no idea. I could go back into my old account and look that up probably, but I studied for, I think it was about 5 months in the end, doing an hour or 2 a day with probably, like a time section every other day or so, and a full practice test most weekends. I was able to pull that off because I was started from a pretty high level, so I didn't have to dedicate too much of my time to review. If you're getting more questions wrong, you need to leave more time for review. Let's see. Would you recommend drilling only level 1 and 2 games until you get quicker, or leave the drilling settings as is? Yeah, I think Alan has it right. The Demon Drilling AI should already present you with games that are appropriate to your skill level. So I wouldn't go messing with I don't think I ever touched the drilling settings when I was studying. I just don't. I think it does a pretty good job of mixing it up and presenting you with a good variety of things. Cool. Any other questions for me? Yeah, Alan, what's up?
It's more of like a mental thing, but when you were studying, did you ever deal with tilt? Because that's one thing that I struggle a lot with, where if I get a string of questions wrong, I start skipping the review process and just going question, 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 just because I'm like, I really want to get them correct. Yeah.
So explain to me what you mean by tilt. Just like you get in sort of get on a roll of trying to just throw yourself into it until you get one right.
Yeah, something like that. Tilt, it's basically where
Yeah.
like you make one shitty mistake and then it frustrates you. You get really, and then you get increasingly angry as you get more and more questions wrong, and that leads to you getting more and more questions wrong. And then you're just at that point, you're just like burning through questions without getting jack out of it. Like,
Sure. It's possible. I don't remember specifically that experience. The one thing I do remember doing, which I'm sure was not helpful, was I took a PT the weekend before my first official test attempt and scored like below 170 for the first time in months, and it freaked me out. So I took another PT the next day, which I like would never took multiple PTs in that short amount of time. So like, I had that experience of like wanting to see a score above 170 again before I took the test, which I think was ridiculous, not necessary at all. So I understand that. As far as when it comes to drilling, yeah, it sounds like you recognize that as an unhealthy habit, and it's time to just maybe walk away at that point. Recognize that, and I know you get worked up and emotional, and you should, to a certain extent, like have a little bit of an attitude and get a little bit like ticked off when you see that wrong answer. But if that emotional state is preventing you from effectively reviewing, then you're just burning questions without giving yourself the opportunity to improve. So it sounds like you recognize it's unproductive and unhealthy, which is good. I think it's maybe just finding a way of turning that cue and turning that realization into the opportunity to just take a break and recognize, hey, yeah.
So just if I see him on tilt, just back off for a bit.
I think so. Yeah. And so you know what? I would do that with the games. Now that I'm reflecting on it, the games were like that for me, because the games is where I needed to do the most work. And I would reach a point where I might have been drilling games for over an hour, and I like didn't nail one. So I wanted to do another one to nail it. And then, but like I had that attitude and that emotion, and I got sloppy on the game. I was like, okay, all right, and one more, I'm going to nail this one. So, but then I would eventually have to realize, hey, I'm past my limit. If I keep doing this, I'm just going to reinforce bad habits. So take a step back, rest, and accept that like what I already did today, I already achieved something productive, and that's good enough for my study today. Yeah. Cool. You clearly have a lot of like self-awareness, Alan, and you know how you're feeling and what you're doing in your study. That's great. I think it's just a matter of giving yourself the permission to take a break, because sometimes further study could be counterproductive. Lucy, I'm getting back to your earlier question here. You have full exams 1 to 93 plus their explanations. Do you think me subscribing to LSAT Demon would be helpful objectively? I take an hour to do and review about one section a day. Curious to your thoughts. Okay, so you've got 1 through 93 through the LSAT, the prep tests. The thing that you would benefit from with the Demon is access to the written and video explanations for all of those questions. You know, you have the tests, which is the most important thing, and you would need those to use the daemon properly anyways. So, but effectively reviewing it, sometimes, that's what we're here to do, is explain, or to help explain, why the right answers are right and why the wrong answers are wrong. So I would say start with a daemon-free account. Great place to start. Daemon-free account, you have access to a few of the free prep tests. You can get a sense for, even if you've done those free tests before, poke around in them, see how you like the interface, see how you like the experience of working in the daemon. And on those free tests, you'll get an idea of what our style of written explanations and video explanations are, and particularly with the logic games, what our approach to the logic games are. And for any one of those, there's multiple explanations available for you to pick from. And users have upvoted the ones they think are helpful and downvoted the ones they don't think are helpful. So that would be the benefit, is access to those explanations. But I recommend try daemon-free first. And if it seems like the voices that you're hearing on those review pages and on those explanation pages, if those voices are helpful, then yeah, consider signing up for another account. Obviously, you get access to the drilling feature as well, which is convenient, because you can just hit drill LR and it'll present you with a series of LR questions at your skill level. It'll learn your skill level in the different sections and drill you accordingly. But really, having access to the explanations is the main thing. Let's see. No more questions in the chat. So unless anyone who's still here in the call with me wants to ask another question. Yeah, Carol also mentions you get access to the teachers and can ask specific questions. Obviously, you won't have access to the live classes, but I think even at the free level, at least on those free tests, you do have access to the ask button, which is like the crazy superpower of the daemon. I and many of the other teachers at the daemon responds to written questions about LSAT questions that come through the ask button. We typically turn around in 24 hours. So if you struggle to understand an LR question, hit the ask button, ask a question about it, and someone who scored in the 99th percentile of the LSAT probably is going to be responding pretty quickly with an answer. Any other questions for me before we wrap this up? All right, well, it's been a pleasure having you. Thanks so much for coming. We do these free sessions, or Nathan does these free sessions every 2 weeks. So the next one's coming up on, was it January 12th? Same time on January 12th, there'll be last minute LSAT tips. Nathan already gave a preview of that. But just some final thoughts on how to spend, if you are planning on taking the January LSAT, some final thoughts on what to do in the waning hours before the January LSAT. All right, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Best of luck with your studies, and maybe I'll see you in class sometime soon. I recognize some of you, so great to see you all. Have a great evening.